Hey everybody, it's Ginger on Wheels here again. Thanks for stopping by the channel where we get to test and unbox the latest electrically wheeled gadgets. This gadget right here is the Varla Pegasus, and today we're going to be addressing something that's very important for the electric scooter community. I realized again today, which I do every year, rain. It's a thing. It's raining outside and scooters don't like getting wet. So today I'm going to show you how to waterproof your scooter. We're going to be using the Varla Pegasus as an example, but I think it applies to pretty much any scooter. So let's go ahead and roll the intro and get started. Okay, so first let's cover materials needed. First of all, this is a one beer project, so you're gonna need at least one beer. Secondly, you're gonna need an Allen wrench set of some sort, and I'll link all this stuff in the description below in case you don't have any of this. You can pick it up through my Amazon affiliate links and help support the channel. Also, you're gonna need some blue Loctite, not red, some clear silicone sealant, and lastly, the multi-tool that came with the scooter. A lot of scooters come with a tool that looks exactly like this one, and it works perfect for this job. If you do want to make the job easier though, you can get a drill and you can find little Allen wrench bits, and it makes it a lot easier to do the initial screwing and unscrewing. You don't want to tighten things all the way with the drill, but it's good to get things worked all the way in, and then you can hand tighten it with the tools. It saves a lot of time. And lastly, this isn't required, but it also makes the job a lot easier. This is like a mini screwdriver set that I got off Amazon for literally like 15 or 20 bucks. Highly recommend getting one of these. It's come in handy on more than one scooter or unicycle, so I used it on this project. You don't need to. You can also just use a regular screwdriver or the multi-tool that comes with the scooter. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so like I said, this is our Varla Pegasus scooter. You can see it's on its side here, and we're gonna be looking at the bottom today. A lot of scooters, you remove the deck from the top, but this scooter and the 9bot Max and a couple other low-end scooters I have, you remove it from the bottom. The instructions are pretty much applicable universally for any scooter though, but for this scooter we're just going to be doing the bottom. So as you can see, the Varla Pegasus has this metal skid plate here, and it's going to have 6 screws holding the skid plate on. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you want to remove these with your Allen wrenches, but beware, the screws in the middle are these little screws, and they're actually screwed into nuts that are on the inside of the deck. So when you unscrew these, there's going to be a little nut that falls to the bottom of the inside. Keep that in mind. As you can see, I've already removed most of the screws because I already did this project, but I want to go ahead and show you how to do it. We also have 2 bigger hex screws holding on the kickstand, so you need to remove those also. Okay, so we just used our tools to take off the 2 screws holding the kickstand on. We're going to set that aside. And then there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws holding on the bottom metal plate, and that'll come right off, like so. Now what you're gonna see under here are 7 more screws. There's 3 screws on the side, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. Those are all hex screws. You'll see though, underneath the front tire, there are 2 other screws, and those are gonna be Phillips head, and they're really hard to reach unless you turn the handlebars like you can see here. And I actually used the included multi-tool. You can bend it at a 90-degree angle and get in there and get that screw out. If you're new to the Varla Pegasus scooter and you haven't done any work on it yet, I highly recommend at least going through and making sure that these screws are tight, these 7 on the bottom. Because when I went to go do this waterproofing project, I realized after one ride, one of these screws had already fallen completely out, so I only have 6 now. So anyway, once you have your 2 kickstand bolts out, 7 bolts along the bottom, and then the 2 Phillips heads up here, the bottom deck will just come completely off. And this exposes our battery, which is in its little metal battery case. So there are actually 2 little thin layers of aluminum protecting the battery from the bottom of the curb you're gonna hit. It's kind of reassuring. And then also we have the 2 controllers here, which for this scooter are 20 amps. It's pretty impressive. 20 amp, 48 volt, 500 watts for each motor. You can see the scooter has an IP waterproofing rating, and that means they did their best to design the scooter around knowing that water will get in. And you can see on these 2-pin connectors that they have inside the deck here, there's already a little bit of clear silicone sealant at the end of each connector. So these are already semi-water resistant. So we don't have to worry about any of that on this scooter, luckily. If, however, your scooter doesn't have this, I recommend going through and just, when you buy this clear silicone container, there will be a little spout on the top of it. This one is obviously partially used. But the clear silicone spout you can just use to apply a little teeny drop of silicone sealant to all these little connectors that you see. You can't damage anything by doing that, but it will help waterproof it. The 2 channels that I'm going to cover in silicone are going to be this one right here, that one right there, And I'm gonna try my best to just absolutely stuff this full of silicone sealant. So when I put the deck back on, it actually squishes the sealant in there and makes a waterproof seal. And I noticed this hole too. I think I might try my best to seal this up because the plastic cover just comes up to the edge. And if a little drop of water got in there and dripped down into there somehow, even though the scooter's right side up, it could still get in there pretty easily, I feel like. So I might go ahead and put a little bead of silicone around the edge of this too. So when I push the plastic deck on, it'll create kind of like a smushed bead right there, and I can just wipe it off with a paper towel. Important to keep in mind though, once you do this, it takes a lot more time to take the scooter apart, and if you want to reseal it, you have to take all the silicone sealant off and then reapply it because it's not going to have the same waterproofing effect when you take it off. The rear end of the Varla here, I'm going to actually do the same thing. There's two channels that come in through the back. There's one here for the brake line and the motor wire, and then there's one here for the brake light wire, it looks like. I'm just gonna do my best to smush a bunch of silicone sealant up around here along the edges where I can see the cable coming in from the back side, and that should be sufficient. So with this product, once you smear it around, you do want to get it smoothed out into the area like how you want it to look within 5 minutes because it does start to harden up. It takes about 48 hours to cure completely, but it gets a lot harder to manipulate after 5 minutes of just sitting there. Right there. And we're just gonna smear it away. Try and push it up into all the crannies, all the areas in between the cables. Big old glob of it. There's a very, very small chance you're actually gonna make this completely waterproof, but it's definitely not gonna hurt and it will really help. My Cobble Wolf Warrior, my 60 volt, the OG Wolf on this channel, I waterproofed the piss out of it twice. And I rode it around in rainstorms and snow and pretty much wherever I wanted. I ended up selling that thing, but the owner got a screaming deal and it's a great scooter. But yeah, it does work. I know this works. As long as you're sure that you cover all the holes going into the deck where water can soak down from the top in, and that's the goal. Okay, that is totally covered. Okay, so now I'm looking at the side hole over here. I'm just gonna smudge that all full of silicone too. I'm not trying to smush it down into the hole, just trying to create a completely coated layer over the hole, just like that. Again, there's no really specific rule. Just look at your scooter, find where the holes are and going into the deck and smush them with silicone. All up and everywhere. Use as much silicone as you want. As long as you're not like busting connectors and putting silicone in between the connectors, you should be totally good. There's literally no repercussion to using too much of this stuff. And then like I said before, I'm gonna go along the edges just really quickly and put some goop along the edges. Because when I push the deck back in, it's gonna create a nice like waterproof seal along where the edge is. This stuff is pretty toxic smelling, by the way, so if you're sensitive to that kind of smell, you might wanna wear like a little mask or do this outside.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, this stuff smells really toxic, and if you don't want to get it on your hands like I did, just use some latex gloves. Makes things a lot easier. And also, when you're putting the bottom deck on like this, it's a good idea to use blue Loctite on every screw that you put in so that they don't rattle loose while you're riding.
So this little screw area right in here is going to be a perfect example of why you might want to buy one of those little mini screwdrivers I showed you earlier. This thing actually bends and you can screw the screws while this is bent. So I'm going to put my tip in the end and I can just push it into the screw and then twist the end of the screwdriver, and I'm screwing the screw in right now. I don't know if you can even see that. But put this one in real quick. So you're going to get those pretty tight with this thing. And then you want to finish them off with your little hand tool to make sure they're actually snug. I'm going to put my kickstand back on, which is just 2 more, and those are size 5s. So now we have our bottom plate totally on and sealed. For me, I'm missing 1 screw, so I'm going to actually contact the manufacturer and tell them, hey, you didn't Loctite me and I lost a screw. So you can see once I put my deck on, I got some silicone smush that smushed out of the edges for that watertight seal, so you can just take a paper towel and wipe that off. You want to do that pretty quickly though, because this stuff does dry. If you leave that there for a half hour or more, you'll have a hard time. Here we go, got a nice waterproof seal along the edge. We're waterproofed in the front and the back. And I can't think of any way that water could get into this compartment now. Okay, so here it is, our more or less water resistant / proof Pegasus from the inside. What we have left to do now is flip the scooter up. Now the last thing you want to do is find out where the water leaks in from the outside. So you can see where the cable goes into that little plastic cover that I just sealed. There's going to be a little bit of a hole there at the top. I can see where the silicone is sticking out. Maybe it's hard for you with the GoPro, but I'm going to go inside of Mia and just smear a whole bunch of silicone in there too, like a ton. No consequence to putting too much, but this is where the water is going to be soaking in through the top of the deck down into the controller compartment. So I'm going to seal that off really well. Just smear it all around in there, as much as you want. You got to keep in mind when the tire is spinning, it's going to be flicking water and debris up into this area. So this is one of the most important areas to seal off. You might want to do the little edges. Just as much silicone as you want. It's ugly, sure, but if you want your scooter to be working, it's better to be working than pretty. Once you do that to the left side and the right side, you want to go around to the rear, obviously. This is where the brake cable comes in. You want to do the same thing down there in that hole. And then you're going to have the brake light wire and the motor wires coming in through this hole, and you want to seal off that hole too. The only other thing we have to worry about, and this is only on some scooters, the eMove Cruiser has this horn also. On the back of this headlight, there's a horn. And this horn has holes, and if it's raining really hard or if you actually submerge the scooter completely, water can get in through here and short the system out. So what I usually do is just put a piece of Gorilla Tape or duct tape around this, and it makes the horn a lot quieter, which, you know, isn't ideal, but water's not going to get in. So I'd rather have that any day of the week. This isn't Gorilla Tape, but it's the basic equivalent. And just smush it back there. There. Now no water can get in through the holes back there or in under the deck, and your scooter is waterproof. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed that episode where our Varla Pegasus scooter, and maybe your scooter is now totally waterproof / water resistant. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I'd really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. We're like this close from 15,000 subscribers. So thanks again everybody for watching, and I'll see you for the next episode.